You have joined the Lightning Overview webinar. And today what we're going to do is we're going to give a broad overview of all of the components that make up the new technology on the Salesforce platform that we call Lightning. This will be the first of 4, and I'll get into some more details about what's coming up in future webinars a little bit later. But what I'd like to do first off is go ahead and introduce myself and introduce my partner in crime today.
That would be me. Hi, I'm Mary Scotton. I'm a developer and admin evangelist at Salesforce, and I'm super excited to share the Lightning technologies with you today. There are a few products in there that I have been dreaming about a long time as a former product manager at Salesforce, and so I will be demoing the products for you. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Mary. Yeah, we're really lucky to have Mary, as she's a longtime Salesforce employee. She's been in the R&D side. She's basically, her passion is making administration and configuration and development on the platform easier for all involved. So thank you, Mary, for joining us today. And I'm Dave Carroll, Senior Director here at Salesforce of Evangelism. And I'm really stoked to be talking about Lightning with you guys today. Some of you guys might know me. I've been here at Salesforce for about 12 years now, and I've seen the platform go from basically an API to where it is that we're going to be talking about today. So this is really, really fun and amazing. So, and for those of you playing the amazing drinking game, I'm going to give you 1 point there. Make it 2.
What about the you guys drinking game? There's $2 in the bucket.
Oh yes, thank you, Mary. Thank you very much.
Sure.
As you probably realize, you know, we want to be inclusive here at Salesforce, and some of the ways that we say things imply exclusivity, and old habits sometimes need to be broken. So that's what we're going to do. Now, go social. There's a lot of different ways to connect with us via social networks. You know, we've got the Twitter feed. For if you have comments that you want to post on Twitter, please go ahead and use the Force Webinar hashtag, or you can go ahead and @mention us at Salesforce Devs. We also have a Facebook page, a LinkedIn page. We've got a YouTube channel that you can check out video recordings of webinars and other events that we've done. And of course, on the ever popular Google+, we have a Salesforce developers page as well. By the way, this webinar will be recorded, so once you're done and you can't contain yourself and you want to share this with your friends, you'll be able to do that as soon as it's recorded. The URL used for the registration will be the one that you can use to get to the recording. So that's great. A little bit of other kind of logistics and housekeeping. What we're going to do is we want to keep this interactive, and I know you guys, you know, we've got probably 45 minutes of content here. I know this audience will have a lot of questions, and rather than forget your questions or whatever, we ask that you go ahead and use the question interface in the GoToWebinar panel. The questions are going to be queued up. We're going to do some Q&A at the end. Likely we won't get to all of the questions, but we will post the questions, the questions and answers on the developer forums later once we've got them all answered for you. Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump into one of my favorite parts of any Salesforce presentation. Oh, well, before I do that, sorry, I got ahead of myself. This webinar is in part a lead up to an event that we're doing this year called Lightning Developer Week. And for Lightning Developer Week, we're going to go to 100 cities worldwide. Salesforce won't be at all the cities, but we will have live events in 100 cities worldwide where you can learn more details, more specifics around using Lightning on the Salesforce platform. So to find out more about that, go ahead and check out sforce.co/Lightning Week. That'll have all the details where the nearest meetup to you will be. Also, we have a Twitter hashtag for Lightning Dev Week if you want to tweet about it. It's in the upper right-hand corner of this slide. It's Lightning Dev Week. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so now my favorite part. No, actually, we'll get past this real quick because it's really intended for people investing in Salesforce, but it's also important for people who are considering purchasing or upgrading Salesforce. And the gist of it is make all of your decisions based on currently available product, not anything that might be in beta or pilot and not available on the platform right now. So if you want to learn more, you can go to salesforce.com/investor and read all the details. Okay, so Lightning Developer Week, this overview webinar. The reason why we're talking about this is because I think most of us can agree that we're currently in the middle of what can be considered an app revolution, right? Because an app revolution, everything that we do today, not everything, but most things involve apps, and it's becoming more and more the case. So apps are how we engage with customers. They're not giant applications, they're apps, things that allow us to really be efficient in the time that we spend both at our desks and in front of our devices. So it's really how people work on the job. And you can see that we've got a lot of consumers that have taken on this mantra of apps, both internally and for their customers. Companies like Coca-Cola that provides apps for how their employees work, how their distributors order products on the road. Companies like Philips, where they use apps, specific apps, to improve their customer service. And Honeywell, they're connecting devices to their systems, and there's many, many more apps being used. Now, the thing about apps, and these are not giant applications, again, these are apps, they're never done. And I like to kind of phrase this as never completely finished. And that only makes sense if you have a smaller app. You can think of everything as being compressed, including the life cycle of needing to change the app. If you look at this graph that we have here, these are the popular iOS apps that are updated most frequently. And things like Candy Crush and Twitter and Facebook, Shazam, 30 days. I know Facebook actually has a much more compressed release cycle than that, but 30 days is a very short time, traditionally speaking, to think about adding a new version of your app or creating and releasing a new version of your app. And the reason for this is because they found that it's necessary and it works. They are able to do this because they're using apps, creating apps that do very specific things. So how does this fit into Lightning? Well, we want to provide this iteration capability to the enterprise. And so Salesforce Lightning is really the fastest way to build apps for the enterprise. It's the latest version of our platform. Salesforce1 Platform is a constantly evolving thing. I've seen it personally. I think a lot of our community that's been here a while has seen a great amount of evolution, and Lightning is the new version. And what we've done with Salesforce Lightning is we've built it using a component framework to build on the UI. What we've done is we've built this great monolithic app so that you can build fast apps within it, and we do that with our component framework. Now, the component framework is a full stack framework that involves server-side as well as client-side componentry, and what this does is it allows you to build very quickly and also be able to run high performance and inside of the Salesforce.com platform where your data lives. So we've got the platform services and APIs. What we're going to talk about today is Lightning components. We're going to talk about something called Lightning Builder, Lightning Process Builder, and a really interesting new integration technology called Lightning Connect. So one of the things that's interesting, if you're already using Salesforce1 mobile app, you are using Lightning. The Salesforce1 mobile app was entirely rebuilt using Lightning components. And what this did was it enabled us as a platform company and a SaaS company to be able to create a mobile application that was responsive, where the performance is ever increasing, and allow for quick change without breaking the rest of the application. So because we have components, it's very easy for us to upgrade one part of the app and not affect other parts of the app. This also means that it's highly customizable because the units that are exposed are much smaller. Instead of a full page, we have a component that is made up of other components, and that makes it ultimately more highly extensible, more customizable. And of course, we're going to make Lightning available everywhere. It's not just for Salesforce1, but it's available, Salesforce1 Mobile, but it's the apps you build will be available on iPads, on other tablets, ultimately on the desktop. So to further illustrate kind of the problem that we're solving here is if you think about developing applications, this diagram kind of simplifies but illustrates the process. And the problem is, you know, we have to connect to data sources. And within the enterprise, and when I say enterprise, I'm talking about business in general, there's multiple data sources that we might need to connect to. Salesforce isn't the only data source in any company. We have SAP and Oracle data. We've got data inside of Microsoft systems. We've got data in other clouds. So connecting to that data can sometimes be problematic in itself. Once we've got the data connected, then we have to do something with the data, and that's what we talk about around business processes. And this is business logic that actually makes the data come alive and become useful to your users. And so traditionally, what we've got to do is we've got to code up all these business processes, and once we've got something that we like, we're going to go ahead and write a nice user experience around the data and the processes, and then finally we're going to release that as an app. Now what happens, what should happen, is the users use the app, the business changes, new technologies become available, new paradigms in how you work on your devices, and you have to go iterate. So now let's slide back to coding business processes, again do all the custom development, and over. Now as we showed earlier, this is a good thing. Being able to iterate on your applications is really important, but the less friction that you have in that, the better you're able to actually keep your users using those apps and keep them happy. As a matter of fact, just even the anticipation of this long cycle is one of the things that prevents apps from even being iterated on or built. They just can't stand to go through the process again. So we solve this problem with Lightning, because we've got a suite that hopefully eases each one of these for the business. So in the next 20 to 30 minutes, we're going to go into each piece of this and how it maps back to that iterative process. But for the data connection part, we've eased connecting to many data sources using Lightning Connect. Lightning Connect is based on an OData protocol or specification. And the OData specification is one that is being developed by companies like SAP and Oracle and Microsoft. Salesforce is involved in this. And so it's a really good specification that is going to cross the business application boundaries. We also have Lightning Process Builder, which is going to really make it easy to implement very expressive and complex business logic that you can use on that data. We have the Lightning Component Framework. This is our technology, our full stack component technology that we've used for building Salesforce1 that we're exposing to developers to be able to use the same technology to build their apps. And then finally, we've got App Builder, which is really is what empowers admins to become mobile developers or even app developers as we start to move Lightning towards the desktop. App Builder allows anybody to be able to take components and put them together, wire them up in a way that they've created a whole new app out of this. It's really an extension to the developer process of using components to build apps. In this case, the components already exist and they can be put together. So I'm really excited to be able to demo all this stuff for you today. And what we're going to do over the next 20 or 30 minutes is go into each one of these, and we're going to show you how it works. This is going to be not a very deep explanation of all the technologies. We're going to follow up this webinar with a webinar specifically for each one of these, where we'll go much deeper. But we want to give you an idea of the capabilities that these technologies bring to the development for you. So to start off with, we're going to start with Lightning Connect. And one of the things that, you know, this has not changed in a long time. 48% of CIOs say their #1 challenge in building applications is integrating data, just getting to the data, displaying the data, acting on the data that they have. Things like one-off file formats. You know, how many of you guys have stuff in spreadsheets, and you know, you have your master spreadsheet and you pass it around, and it's different for every kind of process. Data replication, figuring out what the single source of truth is once data moves from one place to another, might get changed, which one is correct and current. All of this management requires really costly software, and of course it's expensive to build it yourself or buy it, and definitely expensive to maintain it. So that's why we have Lightning Connect. So Lightning Connect really allows for fast point-and-click integration. The data is given to you real time. And it's built on this open standard called OData. And so I'm going to get ready to turn it over to Mary, and she's going to do a demo of how you might use Lightning Connect on the Force.com platform. So Mary, why don't you get us into our first demo?
Thanks, Dave. All right, let's jump right into it, all right? Let's imagine that I work at Mary's Merchandise, and our sales reps need to see orders for their accounts. Now, this information is not stored in Salesforce. It's actually stored in a back-end system. However, the sales reps, you know, they're spending all day in Salesforce, and we don't really want them, you know, switching back and forth between the two systems, especially since that back-end system doesn't have a mobile-friendly front end, and a lot of our users are on the go. So this is where Lightning Connect is so powerful. So we can access that data in real time from our Salesforce browser, desktop browser, or the Salesforce1 mobile app. And that experience is then seamless for the end users. They don't even need to know where that data came from. All right, so I'm going to show you here in setup what you need to know to get started with Lightning Connect. The first thing is don't type Lightning Connect into the setup tree. Instead, type external. Type it correctly. And then you will see the two new metadata definitions that you'll need to deal with for Lightning Connect. The first is the external data sources. That's where you're going to create the connection to your external data source. And then external objects is where you'll see listed all of the objects that are coming from other systems. So let's take a look at the data source for a second. So I've already created this data source, and it's called OrderDB. What it's doing is it's hitting a back-end system and getting access to the order data. And the main thing that you need to set up here is this URL. That's that connection point. That's, you know, you hit that URL and you say, okay, what do you have for me? You know, what are you exposing that I can now take a look at? And once you do that, you're going to click on Validate and Sync. I've already done that, so you don't have to watch me do a few other things. So once you validate and sync, you're able to select the tables from that system that you want to expose in Salesforce. And that's what we have here. So there's order and order details. Let's drill into order details.
Now, those tables are not in Salesforce, right?
No, so the data is not in Salesforce. When you do that sync, you're not bringing data over, you're bringing metadata over. You're saying, hey, what fields are on your table in that other system? Because I want to display those in my system. So what it's bringing over is the metadata about the shape of the table in the other system and creating this external object in Salesforce. So if you're familiar with Salesforce, this should look a lot like our custom object definition. It also behaves a lot like custom objects. So we'll see that. There's a couple of new things I want to point out here on the back end and then show you how it looks on the front end. And the first is this external lookup. There's two new lookup types that work with Lightning Connect. This one allows me to say, okay, well, that was order details. Hey, that's also connected to orders, right? Because that's the parent object. So we have a, this lookup allows me to say, okay, I'm going to go through order ID and go to the order object. And we do that inside Salesforce so that then the Salesforce platform knows how to behave, because what do we do with our parent-child relationships, right? We can have lookups where you can click into it from your record, or you can also see that data as a related list. So that's what order details looks like. And then in orders, you know, it'd be all right to have a list of orders, but it'd be a lot more interesting if those orders were tied to the accounts that the sales reps are working on, right? So we need this other lookup type called indirect lookups to take external data and hook it to Salesforce data. So this is where we're making that relationship between the orders and the accounts. And you can see that play out if I go over to an account. So just like you might expect, any children of the account are going to show up as a related list. And right here we have our related list of orders that's coming from another system in real time. So none of this data is stored in Salesforce. This is all being pulled from the other system. And look, it just, you know, you work with it as an end user the same way that you would a custom object in Salesforce. So here's our order detail, and here's our related list. I mean, our order detail. Order details, get it? Here's the order header, and then the related list for order details. Right.
Now, Mary, how much control do you have over, like, the way that this data shows up in Salesforce? Like, I saw the related list. Can I control the columns that are displayed in that? Likewise, can I manage this page layout?
Yes, it behaves the same way that you would with a custom object. So you got our slidey, widgety, flyout thingy here on the right. And if you want to go in and edit that layout, all right, you can work with it. You can actually also add a chatter feed to these layouts, and you can work with the fields the same as you would, and you can manage the related list in the same way. So yeah, once you get it into your system, which is, you know, one click, then you're basically working with, there are a few gotchas, and so that's something, you know, you want to look at the documentation, say what you can and can't do. And the product is currently GA, but the team is still working to fill out some of those gotchas. So right now it's in read-only form, but we're working on making it interactive and also making filling some of the gaps that we have right now. But it's pretty sweet so far. I was also able to make, you know, a tab to show the data, or and we'll be using this data later in one of our other demos. So
great,
so
Mary.
that's just a super quick overview of what you can do there. But I think it's pretty neat to see it all get connected and pull in that data so quickly.
Yeah, I think that's super powerful. One of the things you need to do, of course, is to you know, manage that OData on your server side. But once you've done that, it doesn't just work for Salesforce. It works with anything else that that can consume OData. So you're leveraging that effort as well. And then, of course, the ability for the admin to keep control over how that data is displayed, I think, is super powerful. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is something called Process Builder. And Process Builder allows us to take that data that we've integrated or the data that's inside of Salesforce and do something with it. So Process Builder will allow us to do a lot of things with clicks and codes that we used to have to drop into Apex code to do. Business users can visually create these flows and choose when the processes start. And of course, thanks to the power of the Salesforce1 Platform, these processes are API enabled so that you can trigger them through APIs, for instance. And so I think the best way to understand the Process Builder is for Mary just to go ahead and jump right into the demo. Mary?
All right. I was just tweeting about how much I love the Process Builder, so I got distracted. Sorry about that. All right, let's take a quick look at the Process Builder. And as Dave was saying, you know, this is actually a tool somebody described it to me the other day as what if, you know, workflow rules and visual workflow had a baby? What would it look like? And it would pretty much look like Process Builder. And a pretty good looking baby at that. So Process Builder, I want to show you what the builder looks like, and then just do a quick example of something that you can build. But you want to think about it in terms of, you know, how can I automate my business rules all in one place, and it's got some really nice connections to the other tools that we have. So let's take a look here in Setup. You can look at builders, right? So here's our Process Builder. And I've got this process for late order handling. And actually, I want to double check which one I'm going to pick up. Yep, it's this one. All right. All right, so here we are inside the Process Builder. We're looking at our late order handling flow. So one important thing is that Process Builder is actually built on the Flow engine that's underneath Visual Workflow, and that will surface for you in different ways in the product, so it's kind of good to keep that in mind. So let's imagine that with our order scenario, sometimes the orders are late, you know, and our sales reps want to get that figured out, and we actually have a group of people who handle those orders, and they have a chatter group called the Order Handling Chatter Group. And what the request is of the sales reps, hey, you know, post your late order concerns here, and, you know, include the customer ID and some other data too, really, they need. So problem is the sales reps don't do that. They don't find the chatter group, they don't think to post there, or they post there without the customer ID. And so we want to automate that to both save time for the sales reps and also save time for the order handlers, that they're getting the data that they need. And we can do that really quickly with Process Builder, with point and click. Before Process Builder, you would have had to write an Apex trigger to do this. So let's take a look. So here's our process flow. The starting point is always an object. And I say, okay, here we're going to start with the account. And, you know, what are we going to check on that account? Let's take a look at the criteria. Say, okay, how do I know if it's a late order? Oh, there's a field called late order that the sales rep has to check. And then they also provide the order ID. So they're doing that on the account record, but this is something we want them to do this follow-up where we post to the chatter group. So posting to chatter is a new action that you can do with Process Builder. You can choose the group, you can add topics, which is what this late order is, and then you can insert fields so that you're getting the data that you need in the post. So once we activate this, and this is essentially the world's simplest Process Builder flow that you can build, but I just want to show how it works and just get you a sense of this. Again, in the follow-up webinars, we're going to dig deep into all of the different things you can do. But let's right now take a look and say, okay, if I was in this Burlington account And I said, oh, there's a late order, so I'm going to check that checkbox. That's what the criteria is looking for. And then the order ID, let's say it's this one. And once I save, just like workflow rules or triggers, the process builder is firing on the save, checking that criteria, and then doing the actions that you ask it to do. In this case, we only asked it to do one thing, but of course we could ask it to do multiple actions. And what we asked it to do was post to the chatter group, and it did. So here we have our Burlington account. Hey, it's this order number. Hey, there's a late order. Super simple example, but again, just the power of automating those manual steps that A, are annoying, and B, if they don't get done, slow down your customer interactions.
Mary, what are a couple of the other actions that are new with Process Builder?
Let's take a look. We can add the following.
So you can run Apex code.
Yes, you can. So the nice thing about Process Builder is it connects with all of the other things that you're building. So if you wrote an Apex class, you can fire it from the Process Builder. If you have an approval, you can kick that off from Process Builder. If you have a headless flow, what we call headless flows, what I think are called trigger-ready flows in the documentation, you can kick that off. So you can use Process Builder as a way to manage, hey, these are all the things that really need to happen if this criteria is true. One of my other favorites is creating a record. And that is something that you, prior to this, had to do in a trigger, or we had just enabled in visual workflow. So that's something really powerful that's putting more and more power into the hands of the non-programmer, the business analysts or the admins. So I think this is going to be super popular, especially if you're a business analyst or an admin trying to work with your business owner and saying, hey, here's everything that's happening when we save an account. Does this look right? It's a really nice way to share that.
And so what is the status, the release status of Process Builder right now?
Process Builder is GA as of spring 15, which now everyone has.
Fantastic. So if you're in a developer edition, you should be able to start playing around with this right away.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so let's jump back to the slides. One of my favorite parts of Lightning. Before I jump back to this, I want to. There are a couple of questions have come up on the webinar with regards to generally speaking about Lightning and the rest of the platform. Lightning is definitely part of the platform. So think of it like adding 4 new capabilities to the platform. Another question has to do with, well, what's the relationship now between Lightning and Visualforce? Lightning is by no means replacing Visualforce. Visualforce is the recommended technology when you're building desktop apps today for the desktop browser. We still have our SDKs for iOS, for Android. We have our SDK for Windows Phone. And so all of those are valid parts of the platform. And so none of it is exclusive of the other. And we'll be talking more about the relationship between Lightning components, which we're going to be getting into next, and Visualforce in an upcoming webinar. Because we're working on making sure that they both work together. In other words, hosting a Lightning component from within Visualforce. Which brings me to the component framework. I kind of self-identify more as a coder than a clicker, and that makes this my favorite part of the platform because I like coding. And the component framework for Lightning is based on an open source project called Aura Framework. And what you're going to hear is a little bit of combining of Aura and Lightning. Lightning is the technology that runs on the Salesforce platform based on the Aura framework, which is an open source project. So why are components so important to us? Why are we pretty much banking everything on components going forward? Well, it's because we believe that components are the future. All of the leading platform companies, the ones, for an example of the ones here on the slide, are investing in component frameworks. Companies like Google are creating their Polymer framework. Facebook React is a component framework. Things like Twitter Flight and Mozilla Brick, they've all got component frameworks as part of the technology. And we're not competing with those guys, really. What we're doing is we're saying, you know what, if it's good for the consumer web, it's good for the business web, and Salesforce Lightning is the component framework for the enterprise. The reason for this, the reason why we need a different framework for the enterprise is because we need something that we can standardize on, something that has all the business logic, all the connections to the Force.com platform built into it so that you can go fast. The Lightning component framework, as it is today, consists basically of 3 types of components. So they're standard components. These are ones built by Salesforce, and they have different levels of granularity or features. So you can see inside of the Salesforce1 app, we have the left-hand nav. That's a component. Within that nav, each one of the links are another component. We've got the publisher bar at the bottom, and so on. So these are all things built by Salesforce.com. A lot of which we're in the process of exposing as components that developers can also leverage. Right now we have a ton of kind of low-level components around UI, around chatter, and some other things exposed for you to use in building your applications. And as time goes on, we're going to be exposing more and more components that make it easy and quick for you to build your apps. The next category is custom components, and these are built by developers, partners, customers, whoever. And these are components that leverage what we call, or what we refer to as the, the public interface. Again, these are the standard components that are being exposed by Salesforce as a public interface. But you can create whole new components. You don't even have to use any Salesforce standard components. And you'll see how that works in our demo. And finally, there's another type of component called App Exchange components. So we have partners that are building components to be put in the App Exchange. And one of the things that I find very exciting about the future of Lightning Component Framework is the myriad of developer-created components that I would love to see. I'm in the process of building a couple myself that I'd like to make public and make available for other people to use. And so that falls into the category of App Exchange components as well. So a little bit about the structure and the inner workings of components. Basically, when you create a component, to get it to behave, it renders on the screen. It renders your HTML. But during that rendering, a lot of events are occurring, like the fact that it rendered occurs, or it's been initiated, or whatever. And so we can hook into these events and then cause other things to happen within our components. So listening to events is an important aspect of building components. The other nice thing about components is the concept of attributes. And attributes are ways of passing data into and out of components. And you'll see where this comes into play in our app builder. But this is what controls basically the behavior and the data that might be given to your component to act on. And of course, the other side of listening for events is firing events. And so we can fire events that other components listen for and then will react to. So one of the events that we can fire is that the navigation has changed to maybe a standard record home page. And Salesforce1 as the container for this component would pick up that event and go ahead and display that particular record home page. So how does this help developer productivity? Well, Lightning's improved developer productivity by bundling together the resources that make up that particular component. Once those resources or components are created, they can be shared across projects through the App Exchange, but they also allow us to just compose apps. Now, components as a bundle of resources means that they define what goes in and what goes out vis-a-vis data and events, and they're built in such a, you can build them in such a way that to make a change on a page, if you think back to Visualforce page, you want to change the way a chart is rendering, you have to go back in and modify the page as a whole. Well, with components, you can have a chart component on within your larger component, and to modify that component, all you have to do is swap in the new component for the old component and leave the rest of the application alone. So this really is a huge, huge boon for productivity. Another aspect of improved developer productivity with regards to components is thinking about customizing Salesforce1. Components can behave both as like their own kind of fully contained app, but you can also create a component that can replace a standard component elsewhere inside of Salesforce1. So for instance, on my opportunity page, if I want to change the way that opportunity stage is being displayed rather than some percentage, I want to show a graph, I can create a component just for that and then replace that standard component for productivity everywhere that it's displayed with my custom component. There's other ways of using components to customize Salesforce1 apps, such as using components to add record tabs to the interface. Record tabs are different from custom tabs. Record tabs are shown in Salesforce1 as kind of on the record homepage as like detail and feed and related lists. So you can add your own component as part of that tab set as well. So to give you the flavor of Lightning components, I'm going to throw it back to Mary. Mary, let's see what we got going for components.
Thank you, Dave, and I think you definitely took people on a deeper dive there, and I want to say, give a shout out for the webinar that's coming up where they can get into it, because let me just tell you, this demo is going to be the shallowest dive possible. And I self-identify as a clicker, so Dave, you can hold your comments and we'll just see how it rolls. All right, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you what I did first when I was introduced to Lightning Components, which was what I want to do is get some data out of the database. And since I was also playing with external data, I wanted to see, can I display that external data in a Lightning component? Like, wouldn't that be fun? So let's see if that works. Here I am in Developer Console, and the first thing I want to show is this Lightning component bundle. So when you come in, once you enable Lightning components, which is something that's in beta, and so if you go into setup right now, look for Lightning components, hit that enable me checkbox.
Mary?
And you, yep. What?
Just want to make sure that everyone's seeing your screen. I was not sure. Okay, yeah, you're good. Sorry for the interruption.
That's okay. All right, so here I am in Developer Console, and I was just explaining about that you do need to enable this. So if you go into Developer Console right now and you don't have it enabled, you won't see this new open Lightning resources, and this is where you'll see everything, under the new menu, you're going to be able to make these new items. So when you make a component, you're actually making a component bundle. And what you see here on the right are all of the parts of the bundle. And what Dave was saying earlier, that means that this component is self-contained. It knows about itself. It exposes some attributes to others that they can set, but everything is all wrapped up in the bundle. Take a look at this component itself. And again, it's a very simple example. Hey, I'm going to have a list. of orders. That's what I'm doing here. But some things I want to highlight. It's a standard kind of a mix of HTML markup and also some Salesforce markup, which is the Aura components. And that is because Lightning is actually based on the Aura open source framework that we open sourced a year or so ago. So you'll see Aura coming up in your code. You'll also see Flexi pages coming up in your code, and that is referring to the sort of the page that's going to be created when you render this component. So what I'm doing here is I need to get my orders, and I'm actually getting them from this controller, which is an Apex controller. So if I take a look there, there's a new annotation in Apex that says, hey, Aura enabled, which means Lightning components can call me. And all I'm doing here is standard sockle to pull the external IDs from my order object, which you'll see again, it has this __x because it's an external object. And what I can do is I can put that component by itself. You'll see there's no preview. I can't look at the component until I put it into something. And I want to put it into what we call an Aura application. This creates a standalone application that you can hit with the URL, and mine's going to say hello world. Let's preview it. Boom, woohoo! So this is my very simple hello world component. All right, I've made my little web page. I am iterating through a list of orders using that Apex controller on the back end. Again, super, super simple. I don't want to go any deeper than that right now. Oh, wait, I do. There's one more thing. Is that, it's kind of boring. And one of the things that is in this component bundle is we can add a little style. And so, my favorite color is blue. I would like to apply this to just my component. So now when I go back and refresh, the parts of the text that come from the component have turned blue, but hello world, which actually came from the app itself, did not. So you can contain your style, contain what you know about yourself, and that really allows for that reuse and that kind of modular or composition, and you'll see how that might play out with the app builder in the next demo.
Great, Mary. Thanks a lot. So hopefully we did a good job of illustrating that components are a mixture of server-side and client-side code. But primarily they're standard HTML, familiar concepts, especially if you're familiar with Visualforce. I don't know if you saw the Aura iteration. That's exactly like an Apex repeat. And we have a very similar binding syntax. So I think that most of you should be able to migrate pretty painlessly to developing Aura and actually Lightning and actually really begin to enjoy it. There's one more kind of technology that we want to talk about here, which is called App Builder. And so, that was pretty codey, the last demo. Thank you, Mary. Good job there. But now, what if you're not a coder? How do you get to play in the world of Lightning technology? Well, before I get to App Builder specifically, what happens in an organization is a lot of organizations understand that mobile apps are critical, but less than half of these guys actually have deployed anything. And that's because it's really hard. It's hard to build apps for all the different devices. Bring your own device is a thing, right? And so every week seems like there's a new Android coming out, and every 4 to 6 months there's a new iPhone, and different form factors and so on. There's a limited number of developers with those specialized skills for building native apps. That is actually something that you're going to pay a lot of money for. And forget about the form factors. You've got different operating systems and the multiple platforms underneath, and it's very, very difficult to get these apps built. So our answer to that is to take the app building and break it up so that developers can build components, and then the actual app can be built by anybody. And so this is Lightning App Builder. It's got a nice drag and drop interface. As you'll see in the demo, it really is what you see is what you get as the components are live as you build your app. And we're building it so that we take care of the responsiveness for you, so that you can design it for any kind of device, any kind of screen. So, Mary, can we see the Lightning App Builder demo?
Oh, the Lightning App Builder. I have to say that this part I'm just ridiculously excited about. You know, this is something that I was dreaming about, 5 years ago in the product management organization when mobile, we're like, how we got to do this, but it's really hard. What if we could make a drag and drop mobile app builder? We can't do that. That's crazy. That will be much too hard. Turns out we did it, and I love the way that it moves. I love the way that how easy it is to use, and the componentization where you're really composing what you want to happen in the app builder. That was my speech about that. Let's take a look at it. So back to our scenario, Mary merchandises. Our sales reps are out there in the field. They can see their orders in the Salesforce1 mobile app. And as Dave said earlier, that's one really, really big Lightning app, built with Lightning components. And so the nice thing about that is that if you build a component, you can surface it in Salesforce1 mobile very easily, and it knows how to get around. And that's a difference between Visualforce and components, is that you're not iframing your component, right? It's in there, and it can have those fire events and listen for events from the other components around it. So I do want to show the builder, and then we're going to show Salesforce1. So let's go in and make a new Lightning page. So within the Lightning App Builder, you're creating these pages, and right now, Lightning App Builder is in pilot, so it's something that you have to request to be enabled by support, and you can only build a single page app at this time. Perhaps in the future, you would be able to build multi-page apps. Safe harbor. So let's say that what I want to expose is a different kind of list. The current UI isn't, what my end users want, and I want to, make it a little snazzier. And you saw that really snazzy list that I created with my component. What if I could surface that in the Salesforce1 mobile app? Like, that'd be pretty amazing, right? Pretty cool. In blue. Some of my sales reps have mobile phones, some have iPads. So I want to have this template for the responsive. Like Dave was saying, we're taking care of that. You don't have to think about it. So I'm going to say I want a responsive app, and boom, now I'm in the app builder. So if you haven't seen the app builder, here it is. And in spring 15, we added some components and cleaned some things up. So again, it's in pilot. It's being improved each release. And here's what it can do right now. So one of the things it can do is I have my standard components delivered from Salesforce, and then I have a couple of custom components in this org. This is the sample Lightning component. That's the one that I added. So I'm going to drop that right here on the canvas. And as Dave said, it's displaying right in there. So what you see is what you get. So here's my pretty component. And on the right, if I had exposed attributes, they would be there for configuration. I'm going to pick another list. This is the standard filter list. This is pretty sweet because it hooks up to the list views that you or your end users create. So if there's a particular list of my top accounts or stuff I need to do today or things that are terribly important, then you can create an app that will expose that in the Salesforce1 mobile app. You can also, you saw here, I wanted to see, well, what does it look like in that tablet view? And I can switch that. So it's going to open up. When I highlight the list, the filter list component, you'll see there are attributes here on the right that I can select. So instead of the account, I want my orders. And I want this one here, all orders. because I had picked the fields I wanted. So again, it is reading that metadata from your list view and displaying that in the standard sort of card format. I can also decide how many records to display. I'm good with 3. And I'm just going to stop there and save. And this is going to be my little component or app that I've made. Right? The picture you saw on the slide, much prettier. Right? We can add in report charts and things like that that executives like to see. But let's just try this one out, see how my order lists look in Salesforce1. To do that, I click Activate. And what that's letting me do is, hey, is this the label you want? Yeah, I'm good with that. You know, do you want to pick a fancy icon? Yeah, make a little box maybe for my orders. And then I can decide where I want to put it. Did I already put it there? Let's put it right here. Whoop, or not, hang on. Let's drag and drop. You have to actually drop as part of that. All right, there it is at the top. When I click Activate, now it's going to be available in Salesforce1. So let's take a look. I'm using a Salesforce1 simulator in Chrome that's handy for testing and things like that. So, and demos in webinars. So here I am in our standard Salesforce1 mobile interface. If you haven't seen it, go get it right now at your closest app store. All right, you can see my chatter post from my last part of the demo. And then here's my order list that I just created. And it's beautiful. Look at that right there in Salesforce1 Mobile, Mary's component that is blue that shows a list of orders from an external data source. This is pretty awesome, except that when you click on the orders, you can't get anywhere. Which is why I wanted to show you this one. Let's open this up so we can see how it looks on the phone or on the tablet. You can see the responsive design. This is the standard filter list, and when I work on this, I can click right here into the order, and it's going to take me to that standard detail page. And that's what I was saying, that the events and the hooking into the existing parts of Salesforce1 becomes very natural when you're working with the app builder. So that is how it all comes together in the Salesforce1 mobile application, how you can surface your own components there through building a Lightning page in a Lightning app builder. And I think it's really just, Lightning is going to be so powerful, especially the Lightning app builder, for turning everybody into a mobile app developer.
That's a great demo, and it really does bring together kind of how developers and admins, the business people will work together to really go fast in building apps. So I've got just a couple more things. We're running a little bit long, and so I'm going to save the Q&A. Again, I want to reiterate the Lightning Developer Week. We're going to have events worldwide, but also we're going to be doing other webinars for each one of the Lightning technologies that we talked about today, where we'll be spending the whole hour talking about that particular technology. So again, here's the Lightning webinar series. This begins in March. We've done the overview already, and so we've got 4 more coming up for you. Go down to Salesforce developer.salesforce.com and you can get more. Let me just see. I think I'm going to do a couple of questions real quick. So one question was, how is Heroku in the mix for developers with Lightning and Salesforce1? Well, Heroku is part of the Salesforce1 platform. Lightning does not really change any aspect of how you think about using Heroku. Use Heroku to build customer-facing apps and so on. Question, can we use Visualforce pages, triggers, components, and Apex classes with Lightning? So those are like 4 different questions, but yes, you can still use Visualforce pages. Triggers work with Lightning. That just happens on the back end when the data is changed. Visualforce components will not work with Lightning. And of course, Apex classes are key to providing the server-side controller action in Lightning. So one more question, will there be how-to training on this soon? Yes, we are getting ready to turn out a couple of new Trailhead modules as well as the specific webinars. I apologize for everybody for going so long. Thank you for all of those who stayed till the end. We will definitely be posting up the answers to the rest of the questions. There were a ton of questions. We love that as presenters. Thank you and have a good rest of the week.